Talk about some fraud. We've talked a lot about what's going on in payments and wallets, and we'll touch on a little bit of that. I do these presentations all over the world, from Sydney to Shanghai. Was in Tel Aviv and London a few weeks ago. So in 20 minutes, I can't get across to you everything that's in a 56-page report that we published. We're going to talk about some highlights. If you have questions, cut me off. I've done this hundreds of times. You're not going to mess me up. I'll continue going where I was. I want to ask your questions. That's the important part, is that you get what you want out of this thing. So it reminds me of a situation the other day. Joe and Jan were getting ready for work. Up in their bathroom, they just showered. Jan steps out of the bathroom, puts a towel on. All of a sudden, here's the doorbell ring. Jim has just stepped into the shower. She's like, okay, I gotta go downstairs. He was knocking, ringing at my doorbell. And it's the neighbor, Bill. She answers the door. She's in a towel. She's dripping wet. Bill pulls out his wallet, says, I have $500 if you'll drop that towel right now. And Jan's like, drops the towel. He hands her $500. He walks away without saying a word. She goes back upstairs. Jim goes, well, who was that? She said, oh, that was Bill. And he goes, did he give you the $500 he owes me? Fraud, if you don't know what you're looking for, slips by, just like poor Jan. She didn't know what was going on, and she was led to do something she probably wouldn't have otherwise done. That's what fraudsters want you to do. It's what they want you to think. It's what they want you to see and act like and behave like. We're going to talk briefly about the Mobile Payments and Fraud Survey report that we do every year. This is our 6th year for doing it. We interviewed about 800 different merchants from all kinds of different industries, all different levels of revenue generation, from 5 million to 500 million. We'll hit some highlights. The first thing I want to go through is what's happening in mobile. I could show you hours of stuff that's happening in mobile, but many of you have seen some of this. Somebody talked to Jetsons? Well, that first phone is almost Jetsons. I remember when those came out. There was a car-sized battery you strapped over your shoulder and took out with it. The only thing you could do was make a call. That was it. As we've moved along the spectrum, we've gone from communication. Who remembers buying a ringtone? Admit it. We were all stupid. We paid for ringtones. Okay, entertainment. Then it came to research. We could actually do some browsing and stuff. And then we were able to make purchases. Simple ones, movie tickets, books. But now we're transacting. There is becoming a digital transformation in what we call the second wave. The first wave, think about 2005, 2010. What could you do with your bank? You could get online and pay bills, couldn't you? Kind of. What your bank was doing was writing checks on your behalf. This was not a transfer like it is today. Remember, it took 5 days? You wanted your bill paid? Please allow 5 days for your bill to be paid. That's because they had to get it, write a check, send it off to the people you wanted them to. Today, I can buy stocks, I can transfer money, I can open accounts, I can do a mortgage in 8 minutes according to Intuit and Rocket Mortgage. It's incredible what you can do today. We talked about loyalty. $320 billion at rest in loyalty accounts across the world. They are the currency of criminals. They have an exit value. Exit value means it can be taken from my account, joined to somebody else's account, bundled. Even if they can't turn it in for cash, what do? They buy a couple of first-class tickets to Hawaii, go online and sell them for really good prices. They got to turn it into cash. That's what happens. The digital interaction in the transition for wave 2 is this. We're no longer just making a purchase. We're rating. We're leaving reviews. We're redeeming loyalty. We're closing an account. We're changing passwords. We are all kinds of interactions that people have with the merchant. And they have to have these merchants or these interactions. Why? We talked a little bit about it here in the wallet. If I have an app, that's the peak that every merchant wants. I don't know if I'm going to have an app at Nordstrom's. I don't shop there enough. but I have one for Dunkin' Donuts because I buy coffee every single day. I can prepay it, I can reload it, it has my loyalty. It's very easy. They've taken the friction out. Estimates today are about 14 billion mobile devices. Estimates also say only about 3.5 billion people have regular access to the internet. That means we've got somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 to 5 devices each, which make it even more difficult for online companies to go, is this really Don? Is this Gail? Is this Chris? Who is it? I did a little survey in my own home. Do it in your head. How many devices do you have at your house that connect to the internet? I have 22. Think about it. I've got a laptop, I've got a phone, I've got an iPad. All my children have phones. There's 4 other iPads in the house. We have 2 smart televisions. Guess what? If you've got a front door lock or you have a Nest thermostat, those are all things that connect to the internet. We had to buy a new fridge the other day. We go to the store. The guy goes, I got just this fridge for you, and it had a big screen on the front. So you don't even have to open the door. And I said, well, what fun is that? He goes, well, when you run out of milk, it'll automatically order you milk. And I said, I don't want that. I have teenagers. Imagine that automatic list. But it connects. It makes that transaction. And why? Because we are at some level demanding it. The options for payments are going through the roof. In 2017, 21 new payment options were made available. Worldwide, 260 different payment options. Which ones do you want? You can't have a NASCAR logo slide saying, hey, here's all the payments we accept. Because this is what it's coming down to. We've been running this survey since 2012, but really only the last 3 or 4 years have shown what's happening. Hey, I see a lot of cameras taking pictures. If you want these slides, just come up and give me your card. I'll send them to you. Okay? I'll send them to you. Just, you don't have to take pictures. Look what's happening. PayPal, arguably the earliest wallet, still lion's share. Things that didn't even show up last year, like Venmo and Square Cash and Gift, are now taking sizable pieces of the market. Which one of these payment options do you want on your site? Any ideas? Christopher, any ideas? Which ones? PayPal is probably a winner. We saw a drop in Apple Pay this year. Why? Because merchants are as loyal as customers are. And I always say, if you want loyalty, buy a dog. Okay? Because customers will go where it's easiest, fastest, cheapest. If I go to the checkout page and it doesn't have the payment method I want, guess what? I could probably get your product at 5 other places. Merchants want to see where consumers are interested in making purchases and how they want to purchase. There's this huge influx. They talked about it. I think Willie talked a little bit about it. You've always got this huge boom, all these different types, and guess what? It's going to consolidate like crazy over the next 5 to 7 years. If you're like me, and I know I am, it's after lunch, but it's not that far after lunch. You wake up, what's the first thing you do? You grab your phone, any emergencies, any texts I need, any emails from my boss, anything I've got to respond to immediately. Then you get to work, what's the next thing you do? You open up your laptop, your desktop, you do most of your work during the day, you close that up, you go home, and what do you do then? You sit down at the couch, you pull out your iPad, and you start going, hey, well, let's go buy a movie. Let's get tickets for this weekend. Oh, it's Jenny's birthday. Let's send her something really nice. That's not an unusual thing anymore. 5 years ago, you had 3 devices. You were like a, what do they call them, a techie, a geek? I bet every one of you have more than 3 devices. But it makes it extremely difficult to determine if you are really who you say you are. Look at what's happening in the mobile channel. 2013, 50% of merchants got less than 5% of their revenue in the mobile channel. Look at what's happened over the years. Now, a full 17% of merchants out there that will get more than 50% of their revenue in the mobile channel. It's not going to get any different than this. It's going to continue to expand. We have customers that sell couches and mattresses via phone. Why? Because we demand it. I'm on the commuter train home and I go, oh, I got to get that couch. And we buy it. And it shows up sometimes the same day. Now it's, if you go to the Iconic down in Australia, 4-hour delivery. You forgot you had an event that night, you want to buy a tux? You buy it, shows up at your office. 4 hours. Yes?
Is that last slide, did you separate tablets from phone? A lot of these studies that combine the two, which really separate.
The study does show it later on. It gives you a little bit more dicing of this thing. This is complete. This is all mobile. So this could be smart televisions. This could be game devices. We've lumped everything in this particular chart into mobile. Now, the predominance of that is going to be your phone. That's just the way it pans out. Sorry about that. What's the most important to consumers or to merchants? Ease of use for the consumer. And I know it only shows an 8% difference, but the weighting of that has not been taken into consideration. Merchants today will put far more weight on ease of consumer to transact than they will mitigating fraud. They'll figure out the fraud on the other side. They want their money today. Now, fraud and security are high up there, accepting new payment types. Why? My daughter started college. She said, Dad, I got to pay the electric bill. Can you Venmo me $50? And I said, can I what? And then she goes, oh yeah, Dad's a laggard. I downloaded the Venmo app. Literally, within a couple minutes, I sent her $50. Square Cash, Zelle, all making huge strides in the P2P payment space. Something that really wasn't even there a couple of years ago. We still deal with this. This fraud still happens today. I bet you got one this week. It may not be from the Nigerian prince, but it may be from a credit card company like USA Today. It may be from Lloyd's of London. That looks really, really good. It may be from FedEx or UPS that makes it sound like there's something on its way. This type of fraud still happens. But this is a 1990s fraud scam that continues to go. Let's talk a little bit about...
Warrants for my arrest from the IRS this week.
Are you a fugitive? Wow. I literally was sitting in the back here. I just got one. You are under surveillance for a warrant. Please call immediately. I'm like, if I'm that much of a fugitive, they'll come see me. Here's today's fraud. Let me see if I can get this to work for you. And this has got sound, so you ready?
School's not going very well. I mean, I don't have any back grades.
Can you hear that?
Now it's really hard with help, and it's not very fun. So if I don't function well again, it's because I'm having math problems again.
Let me explain to you what's going on. This is an app. This is a 13-year-old boy explaining why he hasn't been online lately. He's been having trouble in his math class. He's really sorry, but if he doesn't talk to you much in the future here, it's because he's tutoring and his mom's going to put him on restriction if he has a math problem again. What he's going to do right here is do what they call a brute force attack and get into PayPal accounts. This is a 13-year-old. Guess where this is found? Look up in the left-hand corner at the top there. This is YouTube. I've got at least 15 or 20 of these videos that used to be able to have to go to some deep, dark secret on the web that nobody knew about. And yet have a special code. You can go to YouTube. You can go to Google. You can go to Facebook. These guys are not afraid. What this little kid is doing right now has just launched this piece of technology that found usernames and password combinations. Why is that important? How many online accounts do you have? Again, I did my own. I have 18. I have a mortgage. I have a bank account, a checking account, an HSA account. I have a 401k account. I have a Delta account, a Marriott account. I could go on and on and on and on. I'm supposed to change those passwords how often? Every 60 to 90 days. I have 18 accounts. I am not thinking up 96 passwords a year. If I can break into something like this that easily, there's a really, really good chance they can break into any of my accounts. Fraudsters are not stupid. Okay, we'll go past this. Merchants are getting better, but there's a long, long way to go. Back in 2013, only about 16% of merchants could tell you what kind of mobile device was transacting with you, or if it was a mobile device at all. Today, it's getting up to that near 50%. Why is it important to understand what kind of device is transacting with me? Any ideas? I guarantee you, this device right here transact in a whole different behavioral pattern than what you carry around in your pocket. And if you don't know, you can't check the signals. You can't find out. It's very difficult to determine what's going on if you can't tell what the device is. It seems simple, and yet it's pretty complex. Yes, sir?
What's the most vulnerable device from the Android and then open with an iPhone being closed, or if you want to parse between that, what other particular brands of Android?
What's the most fraudulent device, I think was the question.
Yeah,
I'll tell you, there's 2 or 3 different ways to think about it. The most fraudulent device right now is a Nokia phone. Why? None of you are looking for Nokia phones. And yet, if you're willing to do all the little punching into it, you can get through, and you can make purchases. Nobody's looking for them. It's about a 40% fraud rate on a Nokia phone. When you look at Android and Apple, they kind of interchange. One gets higher one quarter, one gets higher the next quarter. There was an interesting stat that said iPad purchases are declined more than iPhones and Androids, and yet they're among the least fraudulent. What? Why do we decline them more often? People use them less? Not directly. That's not a factor. Yes, they make bigger purchases. People with iPads have more disposable income. They're spending more money on entertainment things. The average purchase on an iPad is somewhere around 140 bucks. On an iPhone, it's about 40. They get triggered more often. We saw a 57% increase in mobile attacks. That's huge. And this is the scary thing to me. As a professional in the fraud space, that's what Kount does. I should have introduced myself. We're a fraud mitigation platform. This is a scary chart to me. Because what's the most prevalent tool used to stop fraud? CVV code. We ran a test of 100 million fraudulent activities. Guess how many of them had an accurate CVV code? 98.6. If I can steal a credit card number, how far-fetched is it to go, oh, here's the secret code on the back that nobody knows about? It is not a fraud mitigation tool, and yet it's the most prevalent one out there. Things like machine learning only saw an increase of about 10 or 12%. One of the most prevalent, or excuse me, one of the most strategic types of fraud mitigation. Behavioral biometrics, just starting to scrape the surface. And yet, if I've got behavioral biometrics on my bank account, guess what? They could tell you in a fraction of a second if it's me transacting on this phone. Why? They know how I hold my phone. They know if I punch my code in or if I swipe my code in. Do I tap hard? Do I tap soft? Do I go through this? That behavioral biometrics makes it really difficult to mimic as a fraudster. And yet, I think there's 1%. We're seeing fraud increase because of the nature of wave 2 of e-commerce. It's not about the payment anymore. There's still a lot of fraudulent payment. Don't get me wrong. It's probably still the #1 area where fraud is seen. But it's the interaction. It's the account. The account that is necessarily, that needs more protection than anything else. Creating a new account, protecting an old account. We talked about loyalty. Let me throw this out there. How many times in the last 30 days did you check all your loyalty accounts? I travel 250,000 miles a year. My miles are very valuable to me. I don't look at them more than about once a month. That's a 30-day window for a fraudster to go in, screw up my account, change all kinds of stuff, drain it, or use a fraudulent credit card, add 1 million miles, and then buy a bunch of stuff and sell it before I even recognize it. The account, the digital interaction is where fraud is going because it's so valuable. Why are data breaches so prevalent? Because they can get in and cause mischief. Synthetic IDs, they want to look like you, act like you, and steal everything they can. If you want to download your own copy, it's a 56-page report. Go to kount.com/resources. You can download this. It's great. You can look at it by industry, by size of company. It's a really good piece of information. And with that, I think I'm out of time, but if there's a question or two, I'll take them. Yes, sir.
Somewhat germane, but so if you look at a company like LifeLock,
Mm-hmm.
right, in terms of pulling all that stuff together to help you manage that, is that where does that fit in the solution?
LifeLock. The question is, where does LifeLock fit in this? LifeLock is a consumer product to protect you. What we do is a product to protect the merchant. You have lots of protection. If you have a credit card and somebody goes out and buys $1,000 worth of stuff, what do? You call your bank and you go, hey, that wasn't me. And they go, okay, we're going to have you sign an affidavit, but you'll get all of it. They could hold you liable for up to $50. Most of the time they don't. But you're protected. The merchant is 100% liable. There isn't that protection for the merchant. That's why sometimes when you go, hold it, my credit card's good. I'm a good person. Why'd they decline my order? Because something looked fishy in there, and they don't have a proper fraud system looking at things, and they just, well, it's better for us to decline it than accept it, lose the product, lose the revenue, and get a chargeback fine from my bank. Because if those get out of line, I could lose my merchant account. I could lose the ability to take credit cards. MasterCard, we're partnered with MasterCard and all the big cards. Last year, they said, and they will only get this specific with me, we refused the ability to over 10,000 merchants last year to accept MasterCard. If you're in the US and you have an online business and you can't take MasterCard or Visa, how good is it going to be? You got a problem, okay? Question is, what's the card not present or card? Well, they break them up separately because they're looked at differently. There's card present and there's card not present fraud. I'm most familiar with card not present fraud. Estimates, if you look at the LexisNexis true cost of fraud, if you look at what MasterCard and Visa put together, estimates are somewhere around the $80 to $100 billion worldwide. And that is only card not present. We had this phenomenon happen in the US about 3 years ago where the US finally said, hey, guess what? We could put these little chips on our card. That technology was invented in 1995. It took us 20 years. Why? Because the rails that this stuff runs on is legacy. And it cost them a lot of money to do that. Guess what? Your card company doesn't want you going, hey, can you send me a card with a chip? Because for that short period of time when that card is not in your wallet, it's called this back of wallet, front of wallet. That's why digital wallets are so important to them. Apple, for all the wonderful things they do, don't help Visa and MasterCard because you don't call it my Visa or my MasterCard, you call it Apple. And once you've loaded that in there, you never have to say the name again, MasterCard or Visa. And guess what? If one of those goes bad or expires, you load another one in there. Their brand distinction and that arm's length relationship to the customer is killing them. And they're trying to find ways around it. Any other questions? Okay, I think my time's about up. I appreciate it. If you'd like a copy of this, just give me your business card. I'll send it out to you. If you want a copy of the report, go to Kount.com resources. If you have any other questions, we've got a booth over there. You can come talk to us. But thanks again for your time.